Hello, and welcome back to Scale to Exit with Alejandra Santos, your hostess with the mostest. And today I'm so excited to bring to you a powerhouse of a lady. Oh my God, I loved having this conversation with her. She is a VC, she is an ecosystem builder, and we had an insightful conversation about the role of ecosystem builders in startups, the broken VC model, diversity and impact, investing in underrepresented founders, innovation finance or climate tech, challenging misconceptions in funding, empowering women investors, the power of community in investment, and she gets to share some personal reflections on her global cuisine. And you'll get to find out why global cuisine, because she has been all over the map. So I am going to go ahead and read her bio. You are going to be hearing an insightful conversation with Juliana Garaizar, which is a founding partner of energy tech Nexus, a general partner at Portfolio Rising America, and a venture partner at Climate Tech Global Ventures, investing in AI in climate. She was also previously the Chief Development and Investment Officer at Greentown Labs, Investor of the Year Houston Innovation Award recipient. She's also an advisory board member of Ali Energy, the Latinx Startup Alliance, and Impulse for Women. A Kaufman and VC include fellow experience in bridging the gender gap in investing. She's going to talk about that. And Juliana was the Texas Medical Center Venture Fund Director and the Managing Director of the Houston Angel Network. She was the manager of the French Riviera Sofia Business Angels Network and its European Business Innovation Center, which is why you will learn about her personal preferences in the global cuisine. Juliana started her career in Singapore, first as an international trade consultant for the Trade Commission of Spain, then as a project manager for International Car Center at the Asia Technology Office of Citigroup, and Juliana obtained an MBA at the London Business School and Haas School of Business in Berkeley, specializing in entrepreneurship. Wow! Are you excited? Are you as excited as I am? Because if you're not, then you need to go back and rewind and listen to the intro because she's a powerhouse of a woman, and she brought in her A game on the conversation. If you are not watching us on YouTube, you should watch us on YouTube because we are very entertaining in a good way. We talk really well. You're gonna love us. Grab your popcorn, your wine, your beer, whatever you're into, your hot tea, and go ahead and watch us on YouTube. And no matter where you are, remember to always subscribe, like, share, and comment. If you don't want to comment, that's fine, but make sure that you give us a like, and subscribe. Okay, for new episodes to come in, because believe it or not, it takes a village to put this together for you guys, and we do it so much love because I do believe that there is an opportunity here to be made, and I do believe that this podcast, educational podcast, insightful conversations, are a great way to start making an impact when it comes to exits. Because believe it or not everybody gets the choice to make a voluntary exit. Only 20 to 25% of people ever do, and that's really, really low. And actually, I feel like they may have changed already, but it is my duty to change the statistics and change the narrative on business ownership, because I do feel like if we have the tools, the knowledge, the people, the resources, we can make great decisions in our business. As you already know, it's been proven fact. So why not bring in some insightful conversations with experts as your field, where they can share their stories in this platform, where this can be as useful to you as you want it to be. So don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share. Maybe not comment, but always share. And with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring this powerhouse of a lady. And I cannot wait to hear for you to hear us this conversation. So I'll see you on the other side. Okay, awesome. Juliana, I am so happy to have you at Scale to Exit. Um, I am so impressed by your career. Your career spans across continents, industries, and impact. I mean, you're a powerhouse of a woman, creating impact in like entrepreneurship, gender equality, climate tech, venture capital. Building ecosystems. There's so much that you're doing, and I want to know what
Uh-huh.
is the passion behind all of this. What is your fire that drives all of these initiatives?
I think the passion behind it has always been about building bridges. I'm from this side of Spain, in the north of Spain, that is Basque, is in between Spain and France. We have a different language, and um, I don't know. I always felt like there's a lot of people with very different ideas, very different languages, and people tend not to understand one another. And I always felt that need of playing the devil's advocate, understanding other cultures, and trying to make sure we get to a common ground. So since the beginning, I decided to do my career internationally, starting in Asia and then Europe and now the US. And it's always been about that, about building bridges. And when I say building bridges, it's a lot about creating balance. There's a lot of things that are unbalanced in our world, whether it's climate change, equity, different incentives to get to a healthy middle. And I'm always very excited about the differences and also what unite us, what creates those bridges so that we can build things together. And I think that's the fire that I have, trying to bring a little bit of more balance into this world.
I love that. I love that you say balance because we definitely need more of that, especially nowadays when we are so unbalanced. It's very important to have the kind of leaders that are so passionate because it's what drives the future
Yeah.
outcomes, the future businesses. Because you have so much experience all over the world, basically Singapore, Spain, everywhere. What I'm always interested to know about money mindset. Um,
Uh-huh.
so, how is the money mindset different in each place that you have built in a startup ecosystem, and
Yeah.
how has that shaped the or contributed to the ecosystem you built?
That is very, very interesting. And I think I've never got that question asked. So thank you. It makes it for a very good, question and theme. And it also makes me think, one of the things I realized when I was in Singapore, I still remember my first cab ride when I landed there and I went to from the airport to my home, and the cab driver was like, "Okay, so you're new to Singapore. You're going to work at the Spanish Trade Commission as an international advisor. How much you going to make?" And I'm like, "What?" I mean, it's pretty crazy, right? Because I'm like, and I was like so offended. I'm like, I'm sorry, in my culture we don't talk about that. And then I realized it was a thing, in Asia and Singapore more than anywhere. They talk a lot about money, and it's not a bad thing. It's just they want to know, and it's not that they're, it's just money is a conversation, and I think maybe that's why they're very good traders, and it's a country that is doing so well because money is normalized. And I think for at least some of us in Spain and maybe in the more Latin communities, money is kind of taboo. You don't want to talk about money. It's like it's not the most important thing, and you don't need to know. It's on a need to know basis, and especially for Latin women, I think that is a huge problem. And if you start thinking about the funding gap in women and how much worse it is in women of color, and specifically Latin women. The if you talk about the gender gap for salaries, but also more importantly for wealth between men and women, the biggest disparity is between male Latin male and Latin women. And I think it's because it's not normal for us to know what's going on at home. And actually, we are almost like not invited to that conversation, and we don't need to know. And that means that you give the keys to your car and the driver's seat to someone else. And what happens when that someone else is not there anymore?
Mhm.
There's I have a lot of family members who suddenly they became widowed, and they don't know where anything is. They've never done it in their lives, and it's a huge disservice. So I think culturally that was very interesting. Of course, then I went to back to Europe, where I think we also have a lot of um, more like a welfare state. So money is a little different too there. We don't talk as much as money as in the U.S., but also I don't think we the mindset is of feeling that responsible about the money we earn. It's more like, oh, welfare state will provide. So we are also, I think, in Europe more giving the driver's seat to the government. It's like, well, hopefully, I'm giving money to my pension, the social security. Hopefully, they will do good. And if they're not, well, what else do I have, right? But there's always this thinking about the government will provide unemployment, they will provide, and almost like playing the system, saying like, okay, I would rather be unemployed. Sometimes I look for another job because it's better to do this. The unemployment is pretty good in Europe, so uh, sometimes there's people who are really know the rules and are rigging the system a little bit. And the U.S. is different because you feel responsible for everything. So you have things into, you're a master of your destiny, and I think a lot of people think it's the land of opportunity, because if you work hard, you have opportunities, and they say like, it's a meritocracy, which it could be, but it's also a meritocracy for a certain kind of people. I think one of the things I realized after 14 years in the US is that yes, you can do very well in the US, but you can also do pretty bad. And some people who have migrated, mainly some Latin people who were doing very well in Latin America, but got here and didn't have the right connections, lost everything they got, So there's always the fact of about, yes, is it real meritocracy, or is it only a meritocracy for certain people, and others who are not well connected, they don't have that many possibilities to make the American dream. So those are my thoughts, and I just gathered them right now because you asked, and thank you for the question.
Wow, I love how detailed you are and how in depth you went with your explanation with each country. I always find it interesting because I do see that there's some really good startups coming up from other places,
Yeah.
and I always look at that government, like what the government is doing or what the ecosystem is doing for those startups. And I
Hmm.
look at those countries that are very prone for like education. They give
Yeah.
education for free and resources, in comparison to countries like Honduras or Latin American countries, or even the US, where everything is like dollar. You have to
Yeah.
pay for everything
Yeah.
to breathe here. And
Yes.
and I see like the success of startups, and I'm always wondering, is it a money mindset? Is it the ecosystem around them? Is it like the community
Mhm.
around that? What are the contributing factors that make those companies more successful than others?
Yeah. Well, definitely the ecosystem plays a very big role. And I think the problem with defining an ecosystem is that it's like almost intangible, invisible. There's a very good book called The Rainforest by Victor Wang. Um, He's a Kaufman Fellow, like I am, and he put together a book about what he thought was the secret sauce behind the ecosystem of Silicon Valley, and he equates Silicon Valley to a rainforest, and you know how all of the systems that are underlying make the rainforests thrive, and a big part of it are what we call the ecosystem builders. And ecosystem builders can be anyone. You don't have to
Mhm.
have a specific role in a company, or an incubator or accelerator to be able to play that role. But you need to have this attitude of giving back and paying it forward and being a great connector. And in many cases, that's a role that is not remunerated, at least not directly, but they are critical. And I think when you have good ecosystem builders, the ecosystem really benefits from it. And then when they leave, even though you thought the ecosystem was doing well by itself, you realize the lack of these ecosystem builders. So I think it's always very interesting to see the impact of these people, and what happens when they're no longer there.
So you touched on a few points. The Kaufman Fellows program is an amazing program. I wow, salute you for being part of it, and because of that, I know that you have been exposed to a lot of different venture systems,
Yeah.
traditional and impact
Mhm.
driven. You talked about the Silicon Valley one, and do you think VC is broken? Do you think the traditional VC model is broken? If it is, where do you think the cracks are in, and
Mhm.
how can new investors or current funds make a bigger impact?
So, at least in the areas where I like doing VCs, I think it is broken. One, of course, I think we've already talked about it. It's the diversity angle.
Hmm.
I think there's such a disparity between the fact that women made 80% of the purchase decisions in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We also are going to pretty soon, if not now, own more than half of the assets in the world. And still, many of us don't know how to invest. And when we don't invest, and I think part of it is our money mentality and the fact that many of us consider money a taboo, or are fearing being judged if we make bad investments. Many of the women that are successful, I know they are totally okay with donating money, but they're not that okay with investing because they feel they're going to be judged if they make bad investments. So all of this mentality and is preventing us from seeing the products we like in the world.
Mm-hmm.
There's products out there that are not geared towards women, and I'm talking about most of the products in our day-to-day life have been designed with only male design in mind. It's not only that men have designed that, it's also that when they think about a subject that is going to be using that product, either cars or healthcare or
Mm-hmm.
drugs, it's all mostly tested in male population. That means that the size for the cars is geared towards protecting male population the most, and we have higher chances of die in a car accident because it's been designed for higher corpulence than we are. Same thing for drugs, same things for many products that we should have out there, what we call femtech for women's health, that are not there in the market because men are the ones investing and they don't feel the need of having these kind of products in the world, right? So that's why I think it's more than just financial education for us. Learning how to invest is more like the movement is like, at some point we also want products that are designed for us,
Mm-hmm.
not only in the healthcare space, also we live a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
So there's active aging. We care more about impact, so green and sustainability, consumer goods, all of that. That because we are not in the beginning on when these products are taking shape, we are not able to dictate what gets into the market, and that's why we cannot buy all of these things, because we are not part of the decision makers who are actually bringing those products to market. So it's kind of our responsibility, and I call it the I think there's a lot of books there, and there's one article about the power of the purse. And I think it's time we use our money also as a way to um, not only, buy great things, but also as a way to protest and as a way to encourage things that are well. If
Mhm.
it is our purse is a little bit of like our vote, and that's
Mhm.
the way I see it now. I tend to invest a lot more, and I tend to consume less, but when I do, I'm very aware of where I'm putting the money, and my money is a way to either, punish some of the people who are not behaving or not having my same values, or reward some of the people who I think are building bridges and creating balance.
I love what you said. Everything that you said. I just identify with everything. One
And
of the
that's one. And then, of course, the other one where I think the venture model is broken is in energy and climate, because most of the climate tech companies that are trying to solve climate change, you're changing energy systems in many cases. Energy means that there's a lot of infrastructure that already has been created or needs to be built. And the VC model in general is more geared towards software companies, not
mm-hmm.
companies that are hard tech. They have
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
and that means that when you use the VC model for software, you have an exit in 5 to 6 years. Everybody's happy. Unicorns are flying. All of that. But when you do it for climate tech or energy tech, in general, after VC comes loans, comes project finance.
Mm-hmm.
How do you bridge that gap? How can you ensure an exit when we're talking 15 years or 10 years before you have a real functioning plant, and how do all these people get paid back? So it's a hybrid model where you have a lot more players, a different capital stack,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that includes grants, includes loans, includes venture debt, includes project finance, and how all of these counterparts and stakeholders play together. And I think a lot of it is more than innovating in climate, is innovating in finance. I think you need to become very innovative in kind of the financial instruments you put together,
Mm-hmm.
and that more than anything is what's going to make all of these companies get to market faster, even more so than the technology itself.
Wow. So women are the number one consumers, the number one spenders, the number one that we advise men. They actually listen to us to
They
purchase,
do. They do.
and we
We
still
are the
don't.
CFOs, chief family officers.
That's correct. She family officers of
We
all
are.
households. We
Yeah.
basically tell where the money goes, and still we don't get the funding that we deserve to have. And
Hmm.
especially when it comes to underrepresented founders,
Yeah.
what are the misconceptions that you see usually with funding underrepresented founders that you hear in the industry?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of them. One is the fact that a lot of people think that when you invest in underrepresented founders, you're doing it with impact in mind only. And
Oh.
when you talk impact, in many cases, what a lot of LPs or investors think is like, oh, if there's something that says impact investing, that means that there needs to be a trade-off, and that I'm gonna get less ROI, return
Hmm.
on investment, because somehow there's an impact involved.
Yeah.
And in many cases, it's actually the opposite. Because when you invest in these kind of companies, you get a higher ROI, because these underrepresented founders are hustlers. They never had it easy. They never had family, friends, and full money. So they had to, in many cases, they come from different countries. So, first of all, they had to get here. And all of that creates a lot of resilience and grit. And that's what you need in an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So in general, the ROI is higher when you invest. And then, of course, you create the impact. And the higher the ROI in general, the more people you impact and the higher the impact. So I think that is one of the misconceptions. The other one I think is more about, you know, um, your attitude when you pitch. A lot of I think there's a bias towards listening to men pitch,
Mm,
and there's a lot of studies out there that say, like, when you listen to men pitch and they're very aggressive and they own it and all of that, um, people tend to invest more. And also, there's a few studies there that say, like, when men and women are pitching the same business and with the same opportunity for growth, um, men get asked what is called affirmation questions, which is like, okay, let's assume that you get there. When you get there, what are you going to do? And women and underrepresented entrepreneurs get like prevention questions, like, what would happen if you don't get there? So you're always trying to bring it back to the level of, it's for women and underrepresented founders is more like a risk management. For men it's more like, it's going to happen. So they assume that it's going to happen. And the problem with those investor questions is that those questions are the same even if men or female investors are asking. So there's a real bias there, which is very interesting. So a lot of people are saying pitch like a man, own it, and things like that. um, and I'm like, well, why do we have to change, right? Why don't the investors become aware of their own bias and start understanding that, they need to look under the hood on what's really going on instead of just listening to someone pitch and being very, alpha about it. And then there's a second thing that I think is very interesting is like when men are like, going about it and being hyper optimistic about things, it's a good thing. When women and underrepresented founders are overconfident, it actually backfires, So that is also very interesting, So I think one of the things I've heard also that was very interesting is like, well, you need to pitch more aggressively because you have this imposter syndrome that, you need to get rid of. What is this nonsense? And they think about the imposter syndrome like, oh, it's like a disease you have and you don't know where it came from. It's like, imposter syndrome is caused by a lot of microaggressions that we've endured for years and years and years, and they're so subtle that they become part of who you are and everything is in your subconscious. So trying to be over mega confident when you've never been invited to the table with this little signs like, oh, I'm going to do this, I think it's very difficult, and that's why I think we should reevaluate what the imposter syndrome means and why it is there.
I feel so there's a lot of opportunity to not only bring a lot of education and change belief systems in the founders, but also in the investment side.
Yeah.
What do you think like is the underlying challenge to make more changes in the VC landscape? Would it be like the LPs? Would it be that they're chasing only unicorn money? Like
Mm.
what do you think?
Yeah. So, I actually studied a little bit about that during my Kaufman Fellowship. After the 2 years, you always have to do like a end of fellowship project. And my project was about bridging the gender gap in investing. And then I think one of my uh, fellow cohort members actually contributed to one about the race, which was really good a few years later. So in our case, I think that what we realized is that you have two options. Either you wait for Silicon Valley to change and start hiring more women and underrepresented investors, which is going to take a while because there's this thing called homophilia in teams that you tend to hire people who look like you, who have your same background, university, socioeconomic status, all of that. And I think, we would do a disservice to ourselves if we wait for Silicon Valley to change, knowing that that's been around for many, many years and that the homophilia is real. And then, after studying a lot of in my fellowship project after studying quite a lot of things that have been done in terms of angel groups created by women for women, funds out there. We really thought that the learning by investing model, which Portfolio, which is one
Hmm.
fund I'm working with for 8 years, almost nine now, which is a platform of funds. It's a VC platform where we have around 16 different funds right now, but more than anything, we help our LPs. We train them on how to invest. We empower them more than anything on the jargon that VC uses, so that they feel they belong in a room. Because many of them know how to invest. It's more about just knowing the little things here and there that make a difference, like valuation, or what it means when a fund is closing, and all of these things that are very easy to understand. But if you don't own that language, that vocabulary, you feel you don't belong in a room. So that's what we do. And that means that we have educated, or at least empowered, more than 1,000 LPs throughout all of these 9 years. And many of those LPs have become GPs of other funds, of other portfolio funds. They have created their own funds. They have launched their own angel networks, and they have actively invested in the things they want to see in the world. So for me, what I'm trying to say here is that let's stop for Prince Charming to hire more women and diverse people in the VC world, and take matters into our own hands, own the power of the purse, and start investing $1 at a time. You don't need to be a Shark Tank. Our minimum investment tickets are 5,000, 10,000. They're very affordable, and you get an education more than anything, and empowerment in investing. So we really are very proud of our impact, and I think that's only when you change the investors, you're going to change
Hmm.
the entrepreneurs and how much they get invested in. Because Portfolio is not only a fund for women. We are mainly women investing in anything, but because we are mainly women and we have a lot of couples investing, or a lot of father-daughter teams, um, we tend to invest more in women and underrepresented. But that is not even part of our thesis. Is we are mainly women investing, and you tend to invest in people like they look like you, or that do impact
Hmm.
like you. So there's a very high correlation between who is investing and what gets invested in.
Yeah, this is huge. That is very powerful as well, to making an impact with like reshaping how new investors think. I
Yeah.
think that every new investor should just go through like an education program like this. That way there's more awareness and we don't fall again into traditional VC models.
Yeah, so we are not an education program. We are a fund. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get, and by the way, our Rising America One fund that invests in Black and Brown and LGBTQ founders is in the top 2 percentiles of its vintage 2020. And I'm talking about any other fund of the 1,800 funds that got set up in 2020. Okay, we're talking all of them. It's not only the ones that are investing in Black and Brown and
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ founders. So the results are there. It's only that on top of investing and you getting that amazing ROI, you get educated, you get empowered. So it's not an MBA.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't cost like an MBA because you're just
Mm-hmm.
investing, but you're getting that education for free, which
Yeah.
is pretty empowering.
Yeah.
Because these people who go and become our found members, they then pay it forward, and in general they invest, but also they educate more investors. And that's what we are. We're about activating
Mm-hmm.
women. Many of them, how many women are there that are accredited investors? They don't even know what it means. And if we could activate, I'm talking about 50% of the women accredited investors out there, the impact would be huge. We are nowhere anywhere that.
Wow. Wow. So it's like a small investment of like $5,000. You can get into the fund, and then you get educated, and you also
Hmm.
get your ROI, or you can invest more, obviously. And
Yes,
wow,
yes, yeah,
that is very powerful.
it
Uh,
is.
I may join you and on the Kaufman Fellows as well. I was actually looking into it, and I
You
thought it was,
should.
yeah, the program looks so interesting to me. Okay, so let's pivot a little bit. I want to know something more personal. When
Okay.
when it comes to like living in different countries, like, which one has the best cuisine?
Ooh. I'm a foodie, so that is again, what is wrong with you and all these difficult questions? And nobody has asked me this before. I love it. Oh my. Okay. Yeah, that is crazy. So listen, I've always been in places that have a melting pot of cultures and where the cuisine is kind of all over the place in terms of fusion, and you have a great offering. So Singapore, oh my goodness, that's when I first dug into Asian spicy food. A lot of people think that Spanish food is like Mexican. No way, we don't eat spicy in Spain at all.
At all, yeah.
So when I went to Singapore, every little thing I ate was spicy and above spicy, because we're talking Thai, we're talking
Oh.
Indian, and South Indian is even like spicier than normal Indian. So for me, it was a full discovery, but it was amazing. And what I really liked the most about Singapore is this food courts. I mean, food courts will be like the nice way of saying it, but in some cases it would be in the middle of the street, nowhere, and it would be low-level food courts that we call hawker centers, and they're open 24 hours, and the food keeps coming, and they have stingray in pandan leaf or banana leaf, and with all of the spices, or black pepper crab, all of these amazing dishes. And then you can get like food from the Malay stand, and then go to the Thai for a soup, and then go to the Filipino for some sweets, and then get a sugarcane juice or coconut or anything. And actually, at that time, I know that things have changed, but eating in the street was cheaper than eating at home, because supermarkets were very, very expensive. So it was a lot of fun. So I learned a lot there, and I couldn't pick a cuisine because I loved any of it. um then of course I went to the French Riviera, and French cuisine is,
Oh.
and in the French Riviera you also have Italian food, because French Riviera used to be Italy in the past. So you have this very nice mix of French Italian, which is always amazing. I was in London too. London, I mean, there's no real British food except for fish and chips, which is, but again, very multinational. You still have one of the best Thai food that I had in London was in a pub. Instead of selling like British food, they decide to sell like Thai food, and it's a lot better. So they still have a lot of amazing stuff. And then Houston is a foodie capital of the US. Again, because of the same thing. You have a lot of cultures here. So you have Chinatown, you have areas where there's a lot of Indian population, you have the Vietnamese like the Vietnamese cuisine in some other part of town. And then what I really like about Houston is that they're going very, I think in Singapore when I was doing there was a lot of food, but I mean, a lot of mix of food, but they each had their own cuisine. What they do in Houston is that they mix them and they create fusion. So it's a lot of fun. So I've been to places like they do fajita, like pho Vietnamese with a fajita.
Ah,
And then I've gone to the Japaneiro that does a mix of Japanese and Brasileiro.
what?
Uh, Plenty of interesting fusion of Latin American food with Middle Eastern, and I love that. I mean, sometimes it's weird. I mean, don't get me wrong. Even Tex-Mex is a thing, right? I mean, it's not real Mexican, but it's Tex-Mex, right? So yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun for sure.
But which one do you pick when like you wanna like indulge? Like you're like, okay, I'm gonna treat myself tonight.
Oh my goodness. So I think food is very emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it depends on your state of mind.
Yeah.
So it depends on what I want to feel also when I eat. So I would say there's three things that I love the most. One is Asian spicy because I think it reminds me of my time there, and I love Thai food or Indian food. Then I have Mexican family, so good Mexican food is really easy to get here, and I feel like I'm on weekend mode when I go and get a michelada and a taco, and I feel like okay, things are started. But when I really, 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 really feel so homesick and I'm like, I want to go my mama's food, then I go to BCN or MAD. They are the nice Spanish restaurants here in Houston by real Spanish people, because a lot of people say that they do Spanish food in Houston and it's not Spanish food, it's whatever it is. But these two are real. One is tapas, the other one is more like restaurant type. And that's when I feel like, okay, I'm tasting home. I'm not as homesick anymore.
I love spicy food too. Like in my country, Honduras, we don't eat
Mm.
spicy the
Yeah.
way that spicy in Mexico.
Yeah.
But here, I actually enjoy it. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a new thing. And I love food too. I'm a big foodie. So when I go to Houston, I'm gonna tell you, let's go for food
Oh
and
yeah,
pasta.
let's do that. Oh, and my partners are so foodies. They know every single restaurant there is to know. Any kind of food they know. So,
Okay, so let's pivot one more time. Let's go to the founder side. We talk about VC. Let's talk about founders.
yes.
When founders are in front of you for pitches,
Yeah.
what are the red flags that like really come to you when you see a pitch?
Yeah, I mean, again, investing, I think it's different when I invest for myself as an angel,
Mm,
which I still do a lot,
mhm,
and when I invest on behalf of someone else,
mhm,
that
mhm,
I'm a GP or a venture partner at some fund. I think it's my criteria are still the same, but I would say there's a different order in terms of priority. Um, I think when I invest personally as an angel, I need to find a personal chemistry with the founder,
okay.
and it's real. It's your money. It's a little bit more intuitive, it's a little bit more emotional, it's in my case a little bit more about impact. And I need to feel a connection with the founder, either because I feel identified with the founder,
Mhm,
because I feel like the same passion. In general, the grit has to be there, so I need to see that they're hustling. I take a while to get to know them before
mhm,
investing, so
mhm,
I, as I mentioned before, I've created a lot of incubators, business innovation accelerators, so I have time to live on a day-to-day basis with many of these entrepreneurs, so I know how, if they're working during the weekends, I know, because sometimes I go to those spaces during the weekend and I see who's working, and if they all of these things, if they come in early and leave late, and if they're doing, how many people they contact, how are they on mail. And then one of the things that I care a lot about is communication, ongoing communication with them. So I really love investing in entrepreneurs who, as soon as they meet me, they add me to their mail list. And
mhm,
there is an ongoing communication, and they have a newsletter, sometimes specific for investors, sometimes specific for stakeholders, where they get you up to date. And I love that because it's like a very non intrusive way of getting to be it's like peeking on what they're doing, but not feeling like you're being hard pitch, because that
yeah.
is very uncomfortable. And
Mhm,
normally what they say is like, if you want to get money, ask for advice. And if you want to, uh, the other way around, it's like, in general, when you're asking for money, you will only get advice, right? And that's how I feel. You need to pitch when you don't really need the money. You need to keep everybody aware. There's a very big correlation between governance and how well the company does,
mhm,
and you need to give information or on a monthly basis as possible, and not only tell the investor or the potential investor or the stakeholder what's going on, but also what you need, what kind of help, always asking for help,
mhm.
putting the red flags first, being honest about the risks instead of trying to hide them. I think when you see people that are caught in a lie or not are not being totally truthful, that is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Even to like people that you work with. Like I work
Yes.
with a lot of like different
Yeah.
brands, and I see those kind of behaviors or work ethics as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
That is huge because otherwise you're wasting your time. It's not
Yeah.
really, yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
coachability is kind. You don't
oh,
need to know everything.
it's
You
huge.
just need to be upfront about where
Yeah.
you're lacking the skills and if someone can be brought in or you can teach them somehow or all of that, you know. You don't have to pretend you're someone you're not, and nobody has all the answers for everything.
Yes, no, and I love the fact that you say that because it gives people the option, the opportunity to be vulnerable, and
Yeah.
it makes because sometimes there's so much pressure on the
Yeah.
founder, right?
Yeah.
But when people work with somebody like you, then they feel a little bit more comfortable in
Yes.
expressing themselves, and
Yeah.
that's huge as well.
It
That's huge.
is, and I think one of the things I like about entrepreneurs I found is that they see you as people, not as like
Hmm.
piggy banks or checkbooks, walking checkbooks. And I like when we have conversations that don't evolve all the time around the business. We
Hmm.
can talk about all the passions, personal lives, family life, the kids, all of
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
because you want to like the, I mean, it's sometimes when you invest it's longer than a marriage, so you really need to like the people you invest in.
Yes, yes, it's
and
kind of
and
like
I think that's key. And sometimes when people are like, okay, out to the point, like, am I interested in you? Yes, no, what is your thesis, this, that, it's so transactional that it kind of puts me off, so
yeah,
that's yeah.
no, transactional really gives a bad taste.
Yes.
In anybody's mouth. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah. So, what would you say to founders right now talking about advice? Because the AI is so trendy. Everybody wants to go to AI. I've seen startups that got investment for like 30 million on a whatever billion valuation. And I'm look at the company and I'm like, okay, well, this company really isn't doing a lot of different things except
Yeah.
that it's an AI business. And then I see founders that I discourage because they're like, I don't have an AI business, or they're in the consumer space, and
Yeah.
like, what do I do with my business? So what advice would you give to founders right now in order to be able to obtain funding when it comes to if they don't meet those metrics?
Yeah, I think AI is a blessing and a curse. I think it
Yeah.
can really help a lot of companies, but also there's a big hype about it, right? And even trying to discover what's under the hood and what AI is really doing, and more than anything, it's not even about the AI itself. It's about the data quality, because you can have the best AI in the world if you have garbage in, garbage data. You get garbage out.
I say that all the time to everybody, to my clients: garbage in, garbage out. Sorry.
Yeah, so you can have the most sophisticated algorithms.
Yeah.
You have garbage data in, you get garbage data out, and so a few of the companies that are doing AI that I like are actually solving the data problem and cleaning it up and making it like really usable, which is amazing. I think I understand that everybody wants to hear AI in the deck, and if you don't have AI, it's like, oh, something is missing.
Yeah.
But I think real investors who are not like in it for the hype,
Yeah.
um, they have a thesis, and I think as entrepreneurs, one thing that maybe you don't realize, but you have to do your due diligence the same way investors do due diligence on you.
Hmm.
There's investors there that have invested in companies similar to
Hmm.
yours,
Hmm.
and you need to find them. So you figured out of the companies that you want to be like, that have a little bit your business model or your same market or something, you need to figure out who got invested.
Hmm.
And from the ones who got invested, you need to figure out who invested in them. And sometimes you can ask them and they're going to tell you.
Hmm.
And when you see who invested in them, you need to also check what other companies they invested in,
Hmm.
so that you're very clear and you study the portfolio companies to figure out, like, okay, why did they invest in those companies? And when you figure out why, and you talk to these portfolio companies on why they invested in you and whether they are good investors, because some of them might have invested and still not be good investors,
Hmm.
that's when you approach them and you try to have a relationship with them that might be, asking for advice first, so that they get to know you. And then when you feel you're ready, asking for money. But, it doesn't have to be AI. it doesn't.
What makes an investor a good investor?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I would say analytic. You need to data is your friend.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be afraid to dig deep in the numbers and trying to ask for more information. Go down that rabbit hole of the data. Um, but after you've done with all of the data analysis, you also have to be a very good judge of character, because at the end of the day, you're betting on what these people are telling you are going to do, and you
Mm-hmm.
need to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's a matter of intuition. Intuition is forged over the years of judging people, and figuring out whether your intuition was right about them or not. So intuition, again, it's a word that is like, oh, it looks like, you're illuminating by some godly, you know some revelation telling you this is a good investment or not. But it's more about your brain being trained in the very subtle signs that people give you on whether they are able to pull it off or not, and then you not even recognizing that you're processing all of that information. So intuition a lot of times is based on experience doing it,
Mm-hmm.
having that sixth sense, and being a good judge of character, and this person going to pull it off or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, the numbers are there, the data is there, maybe everything looks solid, but it's, and it could be future projections, it could be uh, based on past things that they've done, which is even better. But at the end of the day, what matters if you believe that these people are going to deliver on what they say they're going to deliver in their projection and in their deck.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no crystal ball, so you're going to have to follow your gut, and see whether you're a good judge of character or not.
So what is the best way? I love everything you said, by the way. But what is the best way to tell an investor that the plan is went south rather than going on track? But we have a solution. But what is the best way to break that news?
So the best way is telling the investor very early. you know we hate surprises. It's not the
Yeah,
same thing. And that's why, the companies investing are like, okay, this is our runway. Every month they tell you the runway,
yeah.
and the
Mm-hmm.
runway is the runway at the end
It's,
of the day. Yeah. I
yeah.
want to know the runway. I don't want to know the runway when there's a month runway.
Yes.
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 So it's the run my way or the runway. Well, that's the same thing. It's like runway first, trying to figure out how much money we have,
Yeah.
and if some of the cash is not coming in for any reason, so that we can figure out costs, or we can cut down wherever we can before it's irrecoverable, because you don't want to be raising when you don't have any other option.
Yes, it's a worst place to be at.
Yeah.
And when there's a lot of stress, there's not really good decision making either. So
Yeah.
it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Okay, going because this is scale to exit. What do
Mhm.
you think makes well? How do you know that a
Mhm.
founder is ready to scale, and how do
Yeah.
you know that a founder is ready to exit too?
Okay. So I think a founder is ready to scale when he or she has put the systems in place.
Okay.
At first, a lot of the sales are very founder driven, personality driven, but at some point, you need to put the processes in place that anybody you hire can do the
Mm-hmm.
work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot about, workflows, and, all kinds of tools out there like ClickUp and many others that are telling you, okay, if you hire someone tomorrow that's going to be leading your sales, or people who are going to be, doing some kind of sales role or customer service role, what's going on here? What does it, correlate and impact operations, all of that, right? And all those systems are very important, and you don't have those systems in place, you
Mm-hmm.
won't be able to scale. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, COOs, chief growth officers, they know how to make that very important, like, step from, being a 1 million company to being like a
Mhm.
50 to 100, and that's where you put those systems in place. And I
Mhm.
think the people who know how to do that are, like unicorns. So you know who they are. You need to know who they are, and a lot of funds actually use them for their portfolio companies. So that is something that, of course, and the business model has to be scalable, right? So if you're thinking about selling to the government, and it's a 1 year sales cycle and it's a lot of money per contract, you might be putting yourself at a risky situation. That if you have some SaaS where you have recurrent revenue, and it's a lot more palatable, and the decision
Mhm.
makers are not at the highest level, because
Mhm.
that's also going to add to your sales cycle. So those things I think are key for scaling your business. In order to exit your business, what they say is that business don't get sold, and they get bought. So someone else has to come and say like, wow, your business
Mhm.
looks good, and I'm interested. All right. and
Mhm.
and for that, what you need to do is make sure that your business is hitting the numbers that are required for you to have a viable business, right? And not a viable, but and a business that is interesting for acquisition. And in general, again, it's about doing your due diligence. You see who gets acquired or who exits in the stock exchange, and their numbers and what they're doing in terms of EBITDA, all of that, and you're like, okay, that's where I need to be in, and you need to get there.
I love that. I always say, you should also think about the buyer when you have a business in the early stage, because that's gonna give you a vision of how to make the business
Oh yeah.
appealing for the
Yeah.
buyer.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people, when they're uh, considering investing in a company, they always talk about market, and of course the founder, the market, the product,
Hmm.
and not a lot of people talk about the exit strategy. And I'm
Yes.
like, well, you need to have an exit. I mean, you can change it,
Hmm.
but you
Hmm.
need to have an exit strategy, and it needs to be, it cannot be far-fetched.
Yeah.
It needs to be like, okay, because I mean, when a lot of people is like, oh, IPO, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. So who are you gonna convince to buy your company, and are
Yeah.
you already having a relationship with them,
Yes.
because that is kind of key too.
That is a huge. I love that you said that. I think we need to say that more often to everybody, just
Yeah.
because
And
I
it's
feel
like,
that.
but I don't want to sell my company now. It's my
Yes.
baby. What is wrong with you? And I'm like, well, I mean, I still want to exit.
Yeah.
I'm patient money, but not as patient as, forever. So
Yes.
yeah,
And not only that, but I mean, like life happens, medical bills can happen, life, and you
yeah,
gotta be prepared for anything. And you also want to make sure that you have a return on your hard earned
yes,
time and money, right? So
yeah,
I'm so happy you said that. Thank you, Juliana, for coming to Scale to Exit. You're the best, by the way. You have shared so much good information.
Ale, now I want to go and have some food with you. I don't know.
I'm coming to Houston. I'm coming to Houston.
Okay, good.
Fully in the summer, so I definitely will let you know for sure. That way
Sounds
we can go
good.
some food, some like spicy. You
Yeah,
can,
yeah, yeah. It has to be spicy.
yeah,
I mean,
like the
what else? Two Latinas, we need to have spicy, even though we're coming both from countries who don't have spicy food. Still,
and
we
we
are
can have
spicy enough ourselves,
we
I
have
guess.
spicy enough, yeah, and we
Yeah.
can have a michelada too, because it would be
Yes, definitely.
yes.
Yeah.
So okay, so for everybody that's listening, where can they find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
So Juliana Garaizar or Juliana Garaizar. And in general, if you're around Houston, I'm always out and about at every single ecosystem event. So I'm very approachable too. I run this climate hub called energytechnexus.com. So if you go there, you can sign up for free for the newsletter, and also sign up for free for our calendar. All of our events are free, are open to anyone. We're super welcoming and inclusive. And more than anything, we have a lot of fun too. We're gonna have like a 9 de Mayo celebration because we cannot do the cinco, but we're gonna do the 9. Last year we did the 10 de Mayo. We keep on changing, but we're having margaritas and what
But
we
it's happening.
it is always happening. We're having always margaritas and we're always celebrating not our achievements. We celebrate what we are, our journey. So what
Yeah.
we're doing, because I
Mhm.
think a lot of people forget to celebrate their journey,
Yeah.
and then when you achieve the things, you are like, oh, I missed the journey. I didn't think I
Yeah.
would, but I kind of do now. And I'm like, well, let's celebrating when we're doing it, and let's celebrate that we're getting there. Let's not be as hard on ourselves. So that's what we do when we do
Oh my
this.
God. I love everything that you said. I feel so like connected to you. I love that. Do you do mezcal margaritas?
Of course, mascaritas. Of course, yes,
That's my favorite. We're gonna have one of those in Houston
yes,
because
with
I don't have.
caffeine and the whole thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Don't worry, we got you.
We're gonna do it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, and for everybody that's listening. Adios, muchachos. Bye.
Hasta la vista.
Hasta la vista. Okay. Wait.